Yo, it's Super Mike. We're talking about Ozempic and the miracle drug itself, what it actually does, and the side effects of it, and how it positively and negatively affects your own body. Let's just get into it.
Approved by the FDA to manage type 2 diabetes. Maybe you've heard the jingle. Or maybe you've seen Ozempic in the news recently for another reason.
Weight loss.
Weight loss.
Easy weight loss.
Miracle.
When you think about it, it is actually like a miracle drug. Certain people have some kind of those genetic dispositions to gaining more weight. There's a certain thing like certain people have those genes, you know, for gaining much more weight and all that. So Ozempic is 100% is a step forward in the right direction if you want to solve the problem of obesity and weight loss. There's how many people that are 400 pound and can't even get out of their own bed. There has to be innovations in the medical field. So I think the progress of GLP-1 drugs in general, it is like a net benefit positive for humanity in general, but we cannot ignore the side effects also.
Diet drug.
Miracle weight loss drug.
And it's true. Ozempic was designed to help people.
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys who actually don't, oh, you fucking work out just because you're fucking fat. Certain people have, there's kind of like a genetic disposition to gaining much more weight, or certain people have those. I'm not gonna call everyone fat fuck, but a lot of people are just fat fucks. But certain people we cannot ignore, have more affinity for gaining much more weight in general.
Manage their blood sugar. But it's also proven to help people lose weight.
My doctor was like, this is mainly for blood sugar management, but as a side effect, you will lose weight. When I started to notice that, in the first month or so, I had dropped 10 pounds like nothing, I was like, there's something to this.
And once you learn why it works, you'll understand how this drug could completely change the way we approach weight loss. According to the latest data from the National Institutes of Health, around 42% of adults in the US are currently categorized as obese. The CDC's
Shocker.
list of health risks associated with obesity include heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes, diseases that rank among the leading causes of premature death worldwide. Not everyone living with type 2 diabetes is considered obese, but the two are closely linked. In fact, one of the leading recommendations for managing type 2 diabetes is weight loss.
Weight loss, come on, man. Weight loss, that's too much effort, That's too much fucking effort. Weight loss? You mean you actually have to work instead of fucking injecting a fucking pen, Ozempic?
Even a small amount of weight reduction for people with diabetes can help blood sugar manage.
Her tag is the hangry woman. She's gonna be a fat fuck, I would actually don't stop trying to be a fat fuck and actually, go to the gym.
I'm Mila Clark. I'm 33 years old, and I have a type of diabetes called latent autoimmune diabetes in adults.
I reached out to Mila.
Yeah, I don't buy that, certain people that you're just fat, you don't have to put a tag on label on it.
Because she runs a YouTube channel, The Hangry Woman, where she makes videos about living a healthy life with diabetes.
The thing that I wish that people understood more is how difficult it is to live with both diabetes and obesity.
She's also documented her experience with Ozempic.
It has always been really hard for me to lose weight despite diet and exercise.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Certain people have those genetic disposition, they have gained much more weight than the average person in general, but that doesn't absolve you from actually working out and giving twice the more effort than the average person.
And paying attention to lifestyle
Just say if you're lazy,
habits.
For a long time, doctors have had mixed views on how to make weight loss more accessible, to help people lower their risk for illnesses like type 2 diabetes. One option is weight loss medication. Historically, weight loss drugs have been associated with dangerous side effects and have been pulled from the market. Metabolic bariatric surgery is extremely effective for weight loss, but it requires dramatic lifestyle changes that can be challenging to maintain. But with new diabetes drugs like Ozempic, scientists have a safe and effective tool for weight loss, and it's based on something that's inside our bodies already: hormones. Hormones are the body's messengers, running from one place to another, prompting certain cells into action. When we eat, our bodies produce a bunch of hormones to aid in the process of digestion. One of them is GLP-1, the hormone that tells us when we're full. This is the sequence of amino acids that make it up. And this is semaglutide.
It is kind of crazy, like, this innovation in the field of Ozempic, the semaglutide, like this GLP-1 drugs, they're trying to like some kind of like trick the brain to actually think you're actually full. Like whether is or against Ozempic, the concept of Ozempic, like it is pretty innovative and pretty amazing. Like if you actually think about it, and there's a lot of like reports of people actually losing weight itself, but there's also actually a lot of like news articles, of someone actually having suffer from some kind of like life-threatening issue or ailment after they injected Ozempic or any kind of other kind of GLP-1 drugs.
Generic name for Ozempic. It's made to mimic GLP-1. Here's why. When food enters your stomach and begins to work its way through the digestive system, your body releases GLP-1 in the intestine. There are receptors for GLP-1 in cells all throughout the body that serve different functions when triggered by the hormone. In the pancreas, GLP-1 receptors promote the production of insulin, the hormone that lowers blood sugar levels, and suppress the production of glucagon, the hormone that raises blood sugar levels. This is important for people with type 2 diabetes whose bodies are insulin resistant and produce very little insulin of their own. Synthetic insulin is a critical treatment for blood sugar management. And semaglutide makes the insulin you do have, whether it's produced naturally or synthetically, work better in your body. Losing excess fat can also help you become more insulin sensitive. That's where GLP-1's next receptor comes in. In the stomach, GLP-1 receptors slow gastric emptying, which means food doesn't move through the digestive system as quickly and you stay fuller for longer.
It slows the digestion of your food, which overall helps with blood sugar spikes, and it helps you feel fuller for longer so you don't eat as much.
And maybe most importantly, at least in regard to weight loss, there are GLP-1 receptors in the brain, particularly in the hypothalamus, that suppress hunger cravings.
That fuller, satiety feeling for longer is really helpful.
The digestive system is designed to do all of this naturally, but GLP-1 based medications are made to amplify the hormone's numerous health effects. And it works. A major clinical trial of semaglutide in adults showed an average weight reduction of around 15% when paired with an adjusted diet and exercise routine, compared to a placebo group which demonstrated a little over 2% weight reduction. That level of effectiveness rivals the results of metabolic bariatric surgery.
And the fact that I was able to take a once weekly injection and then all of a sudden, like the pounds just like dropped off, I was like, this is wild to me.
These drugs aren't without side effects, the most common being nausea and gastrointestinal effects like diarrhea. Mila initially stopped taking Ozempic because of a side effect that gave her heart palpitations.
Okay, come on. If you're getting heart palpitations, I suggest you not take another Ozempic pen. Just work out. Like, is heart palpitations and chest pain worth it for losing a couple of pounds?
But she's back on it now, and so far, so good.
My blood sugars are great. I'm having an easier time losing weight, and I've like amped up my exercise and being outdoors and hiking and running and walking. And you still have to do all of the other things that everyone has to do to be able to lose weight. It just makes it a little bit easier, but it's helping me so much with my diabetes management.
The number of prescriptions of semaglutide has risen dramatically since becoming available in late 2017. And in 2021, the FDA approved semaglutide to be prescribed at a higher dose for weight management specifically, branded under the name Wegovy. It was big news and led to this drug getting a lot of attention sort of all at once.
The messaging.
Social media is one that actually like boosted this drug into like and information onto every fucking one. Like social media did its thing.
Started to
Rightfully so.
center more around weight loss than it did diabetes, which is unfortunate for people with diabetes and people living with obesity.
It was started on the, like a thing to counteract diabetes, but now everyone's actually losing for weight loss. The bodybuilders also fucking use, GLP-1 drugs, that is commonly popular. Like I'm on the bodybuilding circle, so this GLP-1 drugs is like now also becoming a bodybuilding drug. used for bodybuilding. Like, it's crazy.
These two groups of people who really need this drug for health purposes, but it's being trivialized and kind of looked at as like, oh, this is an easy weight loss solution.
There are solutions in place now to deal with the sudden high demand for these drugs for people who need them. Mounjaro, another medication developed specifically for type 2 diabetes, is currently being fast-tracked for approval by the FDA to be prescribed for weight loss too. Now that Ozempic's notoriety helped semaglutide go mainstream, it, and drugs like it, will only become more commonly prescribed for weight management.
It's not as simple as take this injection and you won't be living with obesity anymore, or you will reverse your diabetes. But as a community, we get really excited to see innovations happen and tools that can,
You know, you can call me some kind of old-fashioned, but like, I'm about, the mindset that nothing's actually given in this universe to you for free. Like, there has to be some kind of like a backlash or a contract to it. Like, if you're injecting Ozempic and you losing weight, but there's some kind of like other side effects, like, you just gain more problems. Like I'm a big believer in this law of the universe stuff. You have to put in effort in order to get that same reciprocation back. Like, nothing's actually given to you for free. Like, nothing's actually handed down to you. You have to like work towards it. Like, there is no alternative to weight loss other than getting inside the gym, and like, but like innovations in field of like GLP-1 drugs, like, I think that's a beautiful step towards for humanity in general. Like, you can solve the problem of people who suffer from diabetes. Like, I think that's the right step in the right direction also. Like, but like, we should not disregard exercise as a whole itself also. Like,
make our lives a little.
yeah, there's also like some kind of like a trade-in deal also. Like, you inject Ozempic and lose some weight also, but you gain heart palpitations. Like, and is that worth it in general?
Easier, and that can cause less diabetes burnout and helps you think about diabetes less. It's one of those things that I think all of us want to protect at all costs.
Let's just look into
are everywhere, and already 1 in 8 US adults have tried them. The Danish company that makes Ozempic is worth more than the Coca-Cola company and McDonald's combined. Look online and you'll see comments about Ozempic face, hair loss, severe stomach problems, and dangerous side effects.
Yeah, you can see a lot of celebrities actually use Ozempic. Like, Oprah is one of the big, proponents of it. Also, like, you can actually see the difference in the her weight loss journey itself, and that's 100% comes from Ozempic. A lot of celebrities who actually have a tremendous weight loss in a short period of time, they 100% Ozempic. Like,
and then a moment later, you'll see a report that it could help with fertility or treating.
And they could also get the high end Ozempic shit, not the fucking the low end Ozempic that the plebeians actually use.
Alzheimer's or even shopping addiction. And it's not just weight loss drugs. We've been lied to about weight loss itself for years now. How much do we know about GLP-1 drugs, and are we being told the full truth about them? I've spent the last few months diving into the research and even tried to get some GLP-1 medication myself to see what's really going on here.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to be a test subject unless I'm some kind of like a 300 obese fat fuck.
At this point, I spent a lot of time on social media digesting what the discourse is out there about this medication. One of the pieces of misinformation I'm seeing over and over again is this idea that these drugs are brand new, that they're not well studied, and that they're not well understood.
It's not studied for this. There's no studies on what it does to a body without diabetes.
There is no research on a person that is not diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
So we know that this line that they are untested or not understood is just not true. They've been studied a lot for both safety and efficacy for both diabetes and weight loss. Thousands of people have been studied in clinical trials specifically for obesity, but not for diabetes. The new phenomenon is that Ozempic is a household name, and it became a household name because of its weight loss effects. However, it's part of a class of drugs that have been used for decades to help people with type 2 diabetes regulate their blood sugar. And just in that regard, it's been a huge medical breakthrough. I think we could probably critique that on its own, in that our society is so weight obsessed that none of these diabetes treatments were a household name, even though 1.5 million people die of it each year. But as soon as it started making celebrities skinny, all of us were talking about it. That's probably worth unpacking, but that's more than we will have time to do here. So when Novo Nordisk started testing these drugs as an obesity treatment, the outcome of those trials suggested that these are the most effective weight loss drugs ever. So the main ingredient in Ozempic is semaglutide. It's part of a class of drugs called GLP-1 receptor agonists, which basically just means they mimic a hormone that naturally occurs in your body called GLP-1. Semaglutide is in both Ozempic and Wegovy, but Wegovy is the one that's FDA approved for weight loss. If these medications are paired with a healthy diet and exercise, people who are on semaglutide lost on average 15% of their body weight. The people who were just dieting and exercising lost on average 2.4% of their body weight. A newer drug made by Eli Lilly called tirzepatide.
Damn, it makes you wonder, like, there's no actual benefit to actually, like, exercise and fucking shit. Like, if you can pop a fucking Ozempic pen and inject, semaglutide drugs itself.
Tirzepatide did even better in its clinical trials, with people losing an average of 20% of their body weight.
Okay, this is making me sad. Like, it's working out, like, outdated. Like, is Ozempic the new meta? Like, working out has become, like, thing of the past.
And so based on that data, we started to have all this very hyped news coverage about how these drugs were a game changer and a blockbuster, and how maybe obesity would be cured forever, which honestly is kind of a bizarre framing. Even from the very first studies, there were people who were not responding to these drugs. Yes, it's a really big deal that 86% of people in a trial lost a significant amount of weight. However, that means 14% of people didn't. Despite all this talk about miracle drugs, the figures are basically the same for both semaglutide and tirzepatide. Roughly 1 in 10 people don't lose significant weight while on this medication and are what's called non-responders. I really wanted to speak to someone who went through this, so I put a survey up on BI's social media channels, and that's how I found Erica.
It's working for other people. Like, why isn't it working for me and my body chemistry? But I'm mad it didn't work, but then it's just, I accept it and I just got to find another way to lose the weight.
Erica says her doctor.
How about, working out? Like, ever heard of it? Like, how about actually going to the gym? Listen, wait.
Didn't warn her that these drugs don't work for everybody. Like many of us, most of her information came mainly from media coverage. When you set these drugs up as a miracle or a magic pill, you're also setting people up for massive disappointment if they had high hopes of weight loss and then these drugs don't work for them. There is one more thing that a lot of coverage has missed. Real life is not the same as a clinical trial. Since those first trials and all that news coverage, there's been more data about what real-world usage looks like. A 2023 study followed people on semaglutide for 52 weeks, and those people lost an average of 4.4% of their body weight. So we went from 15% down to 4%, which is a dramatic difference. Most of the early coverage of these drugs used the numbers from the clinical trials, which makes sense because it was the first time these drugs were studied. The subsequent real-world usage impacts have not gotten as much press coverage. And that definitely feeds into an inflated sense of how revolutionary these drugs could be. Certainly, they are a really big deal. They're more effective than prior drugs, but there are limitations. The other thing that I think might be getting lost here is that weight loss from these drugs will have a plateau, which is similar to diet, to exercise, and even to bariatric surgery. At some point, every weight loss intervention plateaus.
There's this popular conception that losing weight is the hard part and maintaining weight loss should be easy. What we know is that it's actually the opposite, right? The maintenance of weight loss is actually the hardest part.
You wouldn't want a drug that allows you to lose unlimited amounts of weight. That would be dangerous for one, and then you'd have to go off of it when you reached your goal weight, and then you would just start to climb back up again, and it would be this constant yo-yo. However, that doesn't stop people from talking about this plateau like it's some sort of betrayal of the drug or some sort of failure of this medication. All evidence points to needing to keep taking these drugs to keep.
I'm someone who's on this plateau. We'll take more and more Ozempic, injecting more and more Ozempic pens. Like, when you're on the plateau, like, I'm 100% like on the side that this doesn't even seem healthy anymore.
Benefiting from them, which is interesting because we have study data showing that most people don't keep taking them. One study looked at thousands of people with GLP-1 prescriptions and found that about half of them stopped taking it after a year, and 70% of them stopped taking it at the 2-year mark. And another study found that after stopping the medication, people regained on average 2/3 of the weight that they'd lost. This is perhaps another big reason to dial down the hype machine on these medications. Yes, they are a big breakthrough medically, but if people don't want to be on them, then the impact of the drugs will be much lower than were predicted in the flurry of news coverage we had to begin with. A lot of people hear that this is a long-term, potentially lifelong medication, and they see big pharma dollar signs. The cynic in all of us sort of wakes up and says, what a win for big pharma. It's true that it is a win for big pharma. They're probably going to make a ton of money on this, and there is absolutely no denying that. I understand why people are mistrusting of pharmaceutical companies and the media coverage around them. At this point, we've seen some very irresponsible reporting. I think it's really important to be clear-eyed about the role of big pharmaceutical companies in our society. With just a quick Google, you can see that Novo Nordisk has paid fines after being accused of shady sales tactics, they've faced criticism for spending loads of money whining and dining doctors, and that they've gotten in trouble with regulators in multiple countries. More famously, Novo Nordisk—
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that, were like actually like have some kind of like a lawsuit of some kind of like a health care lawsuit. It was one of those people who actually like took those GLP-1 drugs. So
along with other drug makers, faced massive criticism for high insulin prices. Nowadays, insulin is less profitable than it once was, but the potential profits of weight loss drugs remain astronomical. And make no mistake, Novo Nordisk will be cashing in on these drugs, and already is. At one point, the company's valuation was bigger than the entire GDP of Denmark. Understandably, some people who don't trust Big Pharma or simply don't have access to these drugs
damn, is there that many like fat fucks like
are turning to natural alternatives.
Let's talk a little bit more about nature's Ozempic.
Nature's Ozempic.
Nature's Ozempic.
Nature's Ozempic.
Nature's Ozempic.
You'll find people presenting berberine, peppermint tea, green tea, vitamin B12, high fiber diets, high protein diets, all of these things as being natural alternatives to taking Ozempic. There are certain foods that can increase the amount of GLP-1 hormone that your body makes. The part where they get it wrong is that that doesn't necessarily equate to weight loss, which appears to be the goal of many people consuming this content. The level of GLP-1 production that diets can provide is nowhere near what you can achieve with prescription medications.
These interventions are leading to supraphysiological levels of GLP-1, as opposed to kind of modest changes in your diet or some supplement that you could take. These are just orders of magnitude different, and you're not going to see anywhere near the same effects.
But between influencer nutritionists and supplement grifters, we're seeing tremendous amounts of misinformation online about how effective a GLP-1 boosting diet can be. These foods and vitamins are generally less risky than a serious prescription drug, but they're almost definitely less effective as well. This is another subject of intensive news coverage where I think we just need to turn the hype dial down a little bit and look at what the research actually tells us. I also think people pay a lot of attention to side effects of these drugs because we've had plenty of examples of prescription drugs coming onto the market and a side effect no one knew about ends up being very serious, particularly for weight loss drugs. The most common side effects of these medications are gastrointestinal, things like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. These can seem a little bit trivial, just like tummy trouble or whatever, but they can be quite serious. Extended periods of vomiting or diarrhea can leave you dangerously
yeah, it also causes heart palpitations, which is definitely not just some kind of like a tummy trouble.
dehydrated. It's even been reported that one woman died while taking these drugs after months
Bro.
of gastrointestinal issues, including severe vomiting and abdominal pain. Besides the GI issues, the FDA label for these drugs includes a number of other warnings, some of which are for very serious conditions. So if we just pull up the label now, there's what's called a black box warning about the risk of thyroid C-cell tumors. The warning label mentions findings in rodents, but a GLP-1 researcher I spoke to said that the thyroid in rodents and humans is quite different, so those findings probably aren't relevant.
Sometimes by putting a warning label on because of initial good intentions, you can cause more harm by scaring away people who otherwise might be willing to take this medicine and benefit from the medicine.
While the link between GLP-1 medication and thyroid cancer has been hard to establish, the link between obesity and thyroid cancer is much clearer. One study found that for every 5-point increase in BMI, the risk of thyroid cancer increases by 30%. There's also another category on this label called warnings and precautions, and it includes acute pancreatitis, acute gallbladder disease, hypoglycemia, acute kidney injury, hypersensitivity reactions, diabetic retinopathy, heart rate increase, and suicidal behavior and ideation. The label here just says monitor for depression or suicidal thoughts, discontinue Wegovy if symptoms develop. That's not very reassuring to me. This is an ongoing and evolving thing, but the weight of evidence so far suggests that these drugs alone—
Yo. That's kind of crazy. Like, obviously, you're trying to get, to make change to some kind of like your brain chemistry, and you're trying to like, give signals to the brain you actually full, but it wouldn't be like a far leap if you give like actual suicidal thoughts. Like, I wouldn't even like, question that study itself if it actually gives like suicidal thoughts. Like, it wouldn't be much far of a leap.
are not going to cause you to have suicidal thoughts. It is not uncommon for drugs to have very intimidating, if not downright scary-looking FDA warning labels. It's important to remember that things listed on these labels are potential risks rather than guaranteed results, which actually does seem to get lost in the shuffle a bit on social media. Most of the more serious side effects of GLP-1 drugs are on the rare side. Most people who take these medications will not get pancreatitis. Sometimes people wonder why a drug could be approved if it has so many alarming side effects. But it's really not uncommon. If you look at metformin, a very popular diabetes medication—
Yeah, bro. Like, the reason why, like, because pharmaceuticals want to make much more money. That's the reason why. Like,
it has a warning for potentially fatal lactic acidosis. If you look at the label for ibuprofen, it has a warning about potential increased risk of stroke. These things are calculated in the context of being sick. If you take these drugs and don't have a medical need for them, your risk calculation is different, and you are putting yourself at greater risk of harm.
Your neighbor who is interested in taking this medicine to lose 10 pounds so they can get into a size 8 dress for Uncle Harry's wedding, they weren't studied in a clinical trial.
But besides what's on the label, which is scary enough on its own, there's all these rumors on social media about a whole other category of effects that are mostly cosmetic, things like Ozempic face or hair loss. And it's not just hair loss. There's been a ton of concern about how much muscle people lose while taking GLP-1 drugs. However,
hair loss too, like, okay, if it's hair loss, like, I'm out of it. Like, I was on like the video, like, medicines, video, like, we're on the video part, but if consuming like or like injecting Ozempic like causes hair loss, then it's not the go-to. Like, saving anabolic steroids actually like makes us lose hair. Like, what's the point about gaining all those muscles if you actually lose hair?
whenever you lose weight, even if it's just through diet and exercise, you do tend to lose some lean muscle. One thing that's often forgotten in this whole conversation is that weight loss itself can have some very serious side effects, particularly rapid or extreme weight loss. Even losing weight fast through diet has been linked to hair loss, muscle loss, depression, gallstones, all side
Yeah, now I don't even doubt the the depression claims.
effects that overlap with the side effects of Ozempic. So it's really hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. Personally, I think this is just another example of how the conversation around Ozempic has just gotten really weird. People seem to want there to be a punishment for taking a vanity drug and almost gleefully report this idea that your face or your hair or whatever would fail you when you've taken a step to make your body look nicer. At least that's the perception. And to be sure, some people have taken Ozempic as a vanity drug. These drugs became a household name because celebrities were touting them for weight loss, and in many cases, already thin celebrities were touting their weight loss benefits. So we talked about the bad, but there are also some really interesting positive effects that these drugs potentially have. Not only do they make you crave less food, they make you desire different, usually healthier food.
There's a physiological response that causes some people to be more preoccupied with food than others. People I talk to who have been suffering from food noise say the drug feels like a switch is being flipped in their brains.
People have now reported other cravings going away too, like the urge to online shop. These drugs could help with all kinds of conditions: Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, alcohol addiction, and other types of addiction, depression. There's even anecdotal reports of Ozempic babies, which are people whose fertility improved while they were on these drugs. All these things aren't so much side effects as they are potentially brand new indications for the drugs, brand new conditions that they could treat. GLP-1 drugs have a really unusually high number of potential new indications. About 1 in 8 Americans have already tried GLP-1 medications, and this explosion of interest has led to something we've never quite seen before. One of the strangest elements of this rush for everyone to try semaglutide is that it put the drug in shortage. And when drugs are on the official FDA shortage list, compounding pharmacies can make their own versions. Compounded versions of these drugs are not FDA approved or reviewed. And because these pharmacies are regulated at the state level, there's no
Of course pharmaceutical companies are gonna cash in on that.
data available for how many people are taking compounded GLP-1s. In an environment this confusing, it becomes easier to take advantage of people. I spoke to a researcher who purposefully ordered compounded semaglutide from shady online sellers just to see what he would get.
We looked at the online pharmacies that were no prescription and were highest ranked in search results. So these were some of those websites that consumers will see first.
Of the 6 drugs that he ordered, 3 never came at all. They were total scams. So they took the 3 prescriptions that they actually received and put the drugs to the test. And what they found was evidence of contamination and improper amounts of the active ingredient semaglutide. The FDA has also issued a warning about some compounders using semaglutide salt, which is generally used only for research and is not approved for use in humans.
So for consumers, the most important thing is to understand that when you source it from a no prescription online pharmacy, there's a lot of risks, either fraud, incorrect product, or again, you're not getting a product that is medically necessary.
Imagine injecting on FDA-approved Ozempic, and which is some kind of a compound like and shit, like, and you started having like a heart attack in place of losing fucking weight. Like, that's just crazy.
Or appropriate for you.
Offering no prescription versions of prescription drugs is illegal, but there's also what feels like a tidal wave of buzzy online health startups who can temporarily sell compounded semaglutide totally legally. I actually went through the process of being prescribed compounded semaglutide. I went through an online pharmacy where all I had to do was fill out a survey and then do a video telehealth visit with a doctor to be prescribed these drugs. I went through this process for reporting purposes to see how easy it would be to get these drugs, and it turns out it was pretty easy, which, depending how much you value drug regulation, could be kind of concerning. There was sort of no question that I was going to get these drugs. From the second the call started, it was a given. I don't know why, but I thought he might challenge me and say like, these are some pretty heavy-duty side effects. Are you sure you want to take these drugs to lose a small amount of weight? But he didn't. And the doctor that I spoke to in that process did not give any indication that I would need to stay on these drugs to maintain the weight loss. I'm not saying all this to fearmonger about compounding pharmacies, but it is kind of wild how little we know about how many people are taking drugs from compounding pharmacies when we do know that they come with a higher degree of risk. However, there is one considerable upside, and that's that for some people, compounding pharmacies offer a cheaper version of these drugs. In my case, a month's supply of semaglutide cost $250. The list price for Ozempic in the United States is almost $1,000 for a month's supply. For Wegovy, it's $1,349. Those are shocking price tags. You can find economists estimating that GLP-1 medications will add $1 trillion in healthcare spending to the US. Then we have other economists estimating that it's actually somewhere between 20% and 50% of that. And it's not really possible to know who's right or wrong because the actual prices paid to drug makers are secret. And that's one of the many oddities of the American healthcare system, is that no one knows exactly what drug makers actually make from selling their drugs. It's considered proprietary information. At the end of the day, a lot of people seem to want it to be true that these drugs could actually save healthcare systems money, that we spend so much on treating obesity and related conditions that these drugs could actually be a net money saver. And while that might eventually happen, especially if the cost of these drugs goes down, that is a very rare feat for a drug to pull off. The most important thing to remember is that if you see estimates of how much a certain drug is going to cost US healthcare systems, or how much obesity costs America in general, remember that these are really rough estimates. And that's important because the stigma that people with obesity face is often couched in this idea that they're a tremendous financial burden to the healthcare system. I have seen countless comments saying, why do you need Ozempic if you can just eat healthier? Why do you need to take these drugs? What you're looking for is willpower. It simply doesn't make sense to talk about Ozempic as being the easy way out. The easy way out implies there's another way out. And for a lot of people, there just isn't.
What these medicines have taught us is that a huge number of people living with obesity, they were restricting their calories, they were following diets, they were exercising, and it just didn't work for them, even though they really wanted it to work. And now we have something that helps them. And guess what? They're losing weight.
We've been lied to about weight loss for a long time, and we're only just starting to figure it out. The reality is that we, both as a culture and the medical community, have been significantly underplaying how difficult it is to lose weight, and especially how difficult it is to maintain weight loss. We have a ton of data on this at this point, and we know that drastic weight loss is exceedingly rare and is usually temporary. Over time, we've also learned that exercise is not nearly as big of a factor in weight loss as people tend to suggest. It has many benefits and is still important for overall health, but burning more calories is not a guaranteed path to weight loss.
Exercise, so good to talk about exercise. Give me my next Ozempic pen, bro. Like,
many studies have shown at this point that even in the best of circumstances, where we're combining diet, exercise, and behavioral counseling, people tend to only lose 5 to 10% of their body weight. Then after that, your body fights back. When you lose weight, your body starts to release hormones that increase appetite and reduce feelings of fullness. So there's actually a biological mechanism encouraging people to eat more as weight is lost. Studies on people who've lost quite a lot of weight have found that they burn fewer calories than scientists expected, even when you account for the fact that their bodies are smaller and they're carrying less weight around.
If you lose, roughly 20 pounds or so, and you're maintaining that 20-pound weight loss, you're probably burning about 250 calories per day, less than you were before you lost the weight. And we've known that for a very long time.
The advice that doctors gave for years was that all it takes is small tweaks to your lifestyle. Swap your bag of chips for an apple or take the stairs. You can still find all kinds of advice like that online. And it's actually, frankly, bizarre that after decades of research supporting the idea that this is a very complex issue, so many people insist on acting like it's easy. It is understandable to have anxiety about medicating millions of people for what's seen as a wider societal issue. And some people say this is a band-aid on a bigger problem. Those bigger problems being things like our food system or our sedentary lifestyles. And yes, there would likely be tremendous social benefit to addressing those very complex systemic problems. But for now, we have a relatively safe and effective drug that can give people another tool to manage their health in the meantime. So maybe it's a band-aid, but sometimes you just need a band-aid.
yeah, but putting a band-aid, if it causes more problems, like, then it's not a good band-aid. Like, you should also consider that. And this is the new holy shit, the Howard professor of genetics, David Sinclair, says sudden blindness has doubled because of GLP-1 drugs.
Glaucoma and also sudden blindness. It's called NION, which is now twice as more prevalent because of the GLP-1 drugs.
Okay, bro. Imagine you took a fucking drug in order to fucking lose weight and you lost your fucking eyes. Like, crazy.
Really? It's not well known. Obviously, companies don't want to talk about it. But yes, sudden
And the pharmaceuticals are trying to hide that to cause you blindness. Come on, bro.
blindness has doubled seemingly because of these meds. So you have to be
Holy shit.
careful.
Sudden blindness has doubled because of GLP-1s?
Due to NION, which is like a stroke in your eye. And then your other eye can go, which is pretty scary. And there's nothing you can do about it. Hopefully our drug does work for those people.
And well, obviously, correlation does not equal causation, but it seems to be
Yeah, there's a scientist at Harvard. You could look up his work, Joe Rizzo. It looks like it's repeatable across the planet.
Wow, that's terrible because there's so many people out there that are just telling everyone they should get on GLP-1s.
Yeah.
I've seen that like by online people, like online podcasters saying everyone should get on GLP-1s. It's a groundbreaking technology. This is amazing. It's going to transform society. I'm like, we just started taking these. The fuck are you saying?
Yeah, it's not risk-free. Same with ED drugs.
Here it goes. Recent studies suggest that a potential rare link between GLP-1 receptor agonist medications such as Ozempic, Wegovy, blah, 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 and a condition called non-arteritic ischemic optic neuropathy.
Bruh.
An eye stroke.
This fucking shit affects your fucking optical nerve and shit.
Can cause sudden, painless loss of vision in one eye. While absolute risk remains very low, anyone experiencing sudden vision changes should seek emergency medical evaluation immediately. Well, very low is like...
It's still...
What does that
more
mean?
Than 10,000 people.
1 in 10,000?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
that's...
Oh, no, total of 10,000 per year.
Oh, total of 10,000 so far. For how many
Each
people
year.
are taking this stuff?
I think it's pretty...
The drugs were 68.6 times more likely to develop this and 8 times more likely to develop diabetic. What is that? We only got the blurb. Oh my God. Then, wow. Yeah, man, these things are they're just rolling out.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of fucking, like, not just heart palpitations, other shit, there's a lot of fucking, like, bad shit associated to it. Like, makes you wonder, like, if anyone has some kind of intention actually taking it. Like, if you're on the 2 obese scale, actually go for it. Like, what can actually go wrong? You know, if you're too obese and you can actually fucking walk, and the GLP-1 drugs taking it actually makes you walk. So, that's like an adversity benefit, but if it's on the cost of your blind eye or optic nerve or some kind of like a heart palpitation, like, and especially if you're like prone to, you know, heart diseases or some kind of like a very weak optical vision also, like, don't just fucking take it. Like, just work out. Like, if you're on the moderate side of, you know, someone who's actually like bodybuilding, don't take GLP-1 drugs. Like, lose fucking weight. Like, you can, it's so much easier to rather starve than fucking take, you know, the drugs that can cause you potential blindness or your heart palpitation or some kind of like a permanent ailment. So, just don't do it. Come on, bro. Like, until some kind of like a new innovation medication in the same field of GLP-1 drugs with its counteract side effects also came about, but that just takes a lot of time. Like, let's just wait it out, like, and stop being a fat fucking fuck. That's the main fucking issue.
I mean, I think it's important sometimes to distinguish between pharmacologic and physiologic effects. So physiologic is what the hormone naturally does in your body and what can be modulated by natural things like eating a different food. And you might get a twofold change in your GLP-1 by eating a different food, one food versus the otother. But as we know from those DPP-4 inhibitors, it's not going to really change your appetite because the drugs increase it threefold. These GLP-1 agonists are really a pharmacologic effect that only happens with drugs. So you get 1,000 to 10,000-fold higher concentrations of these drugs in your blood than the natural hormone. And so it's just, there's no diet that's ever going to give you that.
And there's no precedent for it either. So should we be at all concerned about that? I mean, they run clinical trials and address safety, but when you're talking about 1,000-fold increase in essentially a peptide hormone, if we were talking about a different peptide hormone, pick one, oxytocin or estrogen, testosterone, they're not really, broadly speaking, most people would be concerned about 1,000-fold dosing of something like that. And obviously there are clinical indications where that's important. However, my observation of the ever-expanding literature on GLP-1 agonists is that there seems to be improvements in like reduction in alcohol consumption. And by the way, why would increasing GLP-1 reduce craving for alcohol. It seems like there's an ever-expanding list of things that GLP-1 agonism is good for.
Yeah.
But we are talking about, I would say, supraphysiological levels
Absolutely.
when one takes it. And again, I'm not against it nor for it. I'm just paying attention to the literature.
So I would say that that's absolutely right. When you're increasing the level of a hormone 1,000-fold, you need to be careful, see what's happening. But at the end, it's an empirical question. What does it actually do to a
Bro, this dude's on hormones. Like, look at this dude's face, bro. Like,
person? And it can only be answered through experiments. And I think the nice thing about these GLP-1 drugs that a lot of people don't realize is they've been around, approved since 2005, the earliest ones. And even something like Ozempic, which maybe only entered the public consciousness in the last year or two, right? It's been around for 7-ish years, I think. So, and big clinical trials with these drugs. And so, and the evidence so far is that they seem to be incredibly safe. And as you said, not just incredibly safe, but they seem to have all these unexpected health benefits that seem to be in some cases even unrelated to weight loss. And so, because of the reasons you mentioned, one of the things
it seems pretty amazing, but also seems pretty suspicious.
FDA requires from these pharmaceutical companies for diabetes drugs is these large cardiac outcome trials. So basically where you measure stroke and where you measure heart attacks and death from any cardiac cause. Big trials, like 20,000 people, 4 years, cost like $1 billion to run. And the data from the Semaglutide, the Ozempic trial, came out last year. And as expected, reduced the rate of heart attacks, strokes, all-cause mortality according to cardiac for cardiac reasons. But what's really surprising was a lot of that seemed to happen before the people even lost weight. So there was already a difference between the placebo group and the semaglutide group before the people on the drug had lost a significant amount of weight. And there was no correlation between the amount of weight they lost and how well they were protected from heart disease. And that's led many people to think that some of these effects actually could be due to other things the GLP-1s are doing that we didn't expect. And so one thing is there's an idea emerging that they are anti-inflammatory. So these brain regions, the area posterior and the NTS, are also really important for this reflex known as the inflammatory reflex that basically acts, and it starts with the vagus nerve, goes to these brain regions in the brainstem, and then goes back down to the body to basically to prevent out-of-control inflammation. And so it's thought that these drugs perhaps have an anti-inflammatory effect that explains some of that.
Anti-inflammatory, low inhibition of alcohol, weight loss. It does seem like a miracle drug if you actually think about it.
It's like the patent on these drugs just got extended by another 100 years. That's a bio pharma joke. I mean, just to put context on it, drugs can be patented and sold as a commercial version and not as generic versions until the patent runs out, unless companies are able to find another approved clinical use, in which case it can be remarketed only as a brand name, not generic version. So a lot of companies, once they do the safety testing and all, given everything they put into the R&D, into the research and development, there's a very big incentive to not necessarily finding new drugs, but finding new uses for the same drugs. Absolutely. And not allowing generic versions into the picture. Yeah, and that's why it's likely to be based on these what sounds like additional uses of Ozempic-related compounds a long time before there's generic Ozempic available.
I think it will be a while. I don't know the exact status of the patents, but I'm guessing it's going to be a while before there are generic versions, but there's a lot of competition coming. So every major pharmaceutical company, or almost every major pharmaceutical company, now has a GLP-1 program. Really? And some of them are really exciting, actually. So I mean, the general trend in this area is what people call GLP-1 plus, which means you take the GLP-1 agonist, which is already giving you 15% weight loss or so, and then you add additional things to that to give it additional properties. So one compound is from Eli Lilly, which makes it...
Bro, it's like they're releasing, like, they're just trying to milk the shit out of it. Like, you gotta take the part 1 and get the fucking premium bonus plus, and also, to get more added benefits. Like, it just all seems like a pharmaceutical trick.
There's this other drug on the market that we haven't talked about, but tirzepatide, which is known as Mounjaro for diabetes, and Zepbound for obesity, which is even better, really in almost every respect, a better drug than Ozempic. So people lose more weight. So it's about 21% weight loss at a year. Fewer side effects, at least at comparable doses. That seems to be because this other drug, tirzepatide, it has two targets, not one. So whereas Ozempic is just GLP-1 receptor agonist, tirzepatide is a dual agonist of GLP-1 and this other incretin that we talked about, GIP. And it seems like having that GIP agonism actually acts as an anti-nausea effect. This sort of counteracts some of the nausea caused by the GLP-1. In the area postrema, there are GIP receptor neurons in the area postrema, this nausea center. So it allows you to crank up the dose of the GLP-1 agonism even further while you're suppressing the nausea and just get even more weight loss. So now, talking about the future, things that aren't available yet but will be in the next couple of years. So Eli Lilly, the company that makes this drug, tirzepatide / Mounjaro, they have a triple agonist that's in phase 3 clinical trials now. So this is now 3 hormones in one. It's the GLP-1, which all these drugs have, the GIP, which is the anti-nausea component, and then glucagon itself. And so these 3 hormones all combined in one pill. And what the glucagon does is it increases energy expenditure. This is a well-known effect of glucagon. And so you're basically eating less, your nausea isn't as bad, and now you're just burning more calories at baseline. And the results from this drug are incredible. So basically, there's been one phase 2 trial published, and people lost 25% of their body weight at the end of the I think it was 48-week period, and they were still losing weight. So we don't know where the end point. We don't know what the maximum is. So there are bigger, longer trials going on now to figure that out. But at that point, when you get beyond 25% body weight, you're talking about basically bariatric surgery, right? Which is currently the best thing we have. Like these surgeries people do to
quote-unquote stomach staple, removing a portion of the stomach,
removing a portion of the gut. So really, it's a pharmacologic version of bariatric surgery. The other one that I think is really exciting, there's this compound from Amgen. It's called, just announced the code, it's like AMG 133. But it's like tirzepatide in the sense that it targets both GLP-1 and GIP. So it's a dual targeted. But unlike tirzepatide, which activates the GIP receptor, this Amgen compound inhibits it. And for reasons that people don't understand, either activating or inhibiting this receptor causes you to lose weight. So it's still a mystery, but a lot of debate about what's going on there. But the way this Amgen compound activates the GIP receptor, or inhibits the GIP receptor rather, is that it's an antibody. So all these other things were peptides, but this is a much bigger sexual protein. This is an antibody. And because it's an antibody, it has a much longer lifetime, even than something like Semaglutide, which is 7 days, so it lasts like a month in the blood or something. And so you can give people monthly injections of this, and they lose dramatic amounts of weight. And then at least in this initial trial, at the end of this, they stopped, and people maintained the weight loss for 6 months.
That's impressive.
Potentially because of the long-lasting effects of this antibody, or potentially because of other things that we don't understand. So, and those are just two. There's all sorts of other crazy things happening. So really, I think it's just created this explosion of interest in pharma. Basically, it's one of these things. It's once you see that something can be done, all of a sudden that changes everyone's perspective. And so now, obesity drug discovery has gone from something that 10 years ago everyone wanted to stay away from because there were so many nightmare stories about drugs that turned out to be not safe. Till now, everybody's sort of all in on this.
I remember in college the fen debacle where
it's crazy the amount of innovations actually happening in the field of pharmacology, especially in the GLP-1 drugs and in the manufacturing, and and the effects and the actual real effects, and it's not actually even like figured out what kind of properties it actually has on the human body. Like there's much more research actually going on it, so people should 100% stay in tune and check with the updates on the developments in GLP-1 drugs itself, because it is a pretty milestone in human achievement if you can actually stop going to the fucking gym and pop a fucking Ozempic pill or a fucking pen injection and live your life. That's just a big milestone in humanity, whether you like it or not.